Forget the backwards hat for a second. The real story brewing right now is much bigger than fashion choices. It's about a young quarterback with first-round talent, a massive fan following, and a franchise that doesn't seem to know what to do with him. The Cleveland Browns are in crisis after one of the most embarrassing season-opening losses you'll ever see. They got cooked by the Bengals, special teams missed kicks, the offensive line collapsed, the receivers couldn't catch a cold, and yet, somehow, the biggest headline in Cleveland this week isn't about any of that. Nope. It's about Shedeur Sanders wearing a hat backwards and rocking sunglasses on the sideline. I mean, really think about that for a second. The team just looked like a complete mess on national television. Joe Flacco threw for negative yards in the second half. The rookie kicker missed 2 field goals and an extra point. And the conversation on sports radio isn't about fixing the offense or replacing the kicker. It's about whether a third-string quarterback, who didn't take a single snap, looked locked in enough while standing on the sideline. Cleveland media has turned Shedeur's hat into the Zapruder film. They're breaking down screenshots, debating his body language, and questioning his focus. But here, where this story gets spicy, because while Cleveland is worried about optics, the rest of the NFL is starting to ask a very different question. If the Browns don't want Shedeur Sanders, why don't we go get him? And that is where things get very interesting. The trade rumors are exploding right now. Miami is reportedly circling like sharks, Carolina is in the mix, Chicago has been floated, and fans are even suggesting Minnesota should make a move. People know Shedeur's got talent. They know he's wasting away as an emergency QB, and they smell blood in the water. Let's be real, Miami might be the perfect landing spot. Think about Mike McDaniel's offense for a second. It's built on timing, accuracy, quick decisions, hitting receivers in stride. That is literally Shedeur's bread and butter. Imagine him feeding Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, putting the ball on their hands in space. That's nightmare fuel for defensive coordinators. Miami gets a young, controllable quarterback with a massive ceiling. Shedeur gets a real shot to prove himself, and the Browns, well, they get to watch their most popular rookie become a star somewhere else. This is why this story matters. It's not just about hats and sunglasses. It's about whether Cleveland is about to fumble a golden opportunity with a player who could actually be their future. And if they do, it could go down as one of the biggest what-ifs in franchise history. Before we dive deeper into the drama, let's take a step back and talk about who Shedeur Sanders actually is, because if you're only tuning into this story now, you might think he's just some flashy rookie quarterback who likes sunglasses. That couldn't be further from the truth. Shedeur is football royalty. He's the son of Dayan Primetime Sanders, one of the greatest athletes to ever step on a field, and he grew up with the game in his blood. From a young age, Shedeur was expected to carry that Sanders legacy forward, but what's impressive is how he's done it in his own way. He didn't just ride the family name. He worked. He carved out his own path. At Jackson State, he became a star almost immediately, putting up video game numbers and leading his team to back-to-back SWAC titles. Then came the big leap, transferring to Colorado to play under his dad on the biggest stage in college football. And that's where Shedeur really showed who he was. In a season where Colorado's offensive line was basically a turnstile, Shedeur still put up over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and kept his completion percentage north of 70%. Week after week, he was getting hit, sacked, and pressured more than almost any other QB in the nation. And he just kept standing tall, making throws, and keeping his team in games. That resilience is what made so many scouts fall in love with him. Even though some analysts nitpicked his arm strength or wondered how his game would translate to the NFL, there were others who said he had first-round talent all day. Accuracy, elite, timing, surgical, decision-making, as good as any quarterback in his class. This is a guy who lives in the film room, who studies defenses obsessively, who treats every rep like it matters. And that's why it shocked so many people when he slid all the way to the 5th round of the draft. Most had him pegged as a late day 1 or day 2 guy, but one by one, teams passed. Some said it was because they didn't want the media circus that comes with having a Sanders on your roster. Others questioned whether his style would work against NFL defenses. Whatever the reason, Cleveland scooped him up at pick 144, and immediately, Browns fans were buzzing. Here was a quarterback with poise, accuracy, leadership qualities, and the work ethic to match. A guy who could sit, learn, develop, and potentially be the future of the franchise. At least, that was the plan, or so everyone thought. But then came the depth chart decisions, the practice reps, or lack of them, and a preseason that left more questions than answers. And that's where this story really starts to get complicated. Now that we know who Shedeur Sanders is and why he was such an exciting draft pick, let's talk about what's actually been happening in Cleveland, because this is where the frustration really starts to boil over. When the Browns drafted Shedeur, the fanbase immediately started imagining him as the quarterback of the future. Sure, they still had Joe Flacco, the veteran who can manage a game, and they added Dillon Gabriel as another developmental prospect, but the buzz was always about Shedeur. This was the guy with the national name recognition, the huge following, and the first-round pedigree, at least on paper. But here's the reality. Since the moment he arrived, Shedeur has been buried on the depth chart. Joe Flacco is the starter, Dillon Gabriel has been slotted in as the clear number 2, and Shedeur has been stuck as the emergency quarterback, which is basically NFL purgatory. That means unless both Flacco and Gabriel go down in the same game, he's not seeing a single snap. No live game reps, no chance to get into a rhythm, nothing. And it's not just the game reps he's missing. Reports out of Browns camp say Shedeur barely got any first-team reps in the preseason. Not one full series with the starting offense. Think about that, a rookie quarterback with first-round talent, a guy you want to evaluate for the future, and you don't even give him a look with the guys he'd actually play with on Sundays. Instead, he was running scout team drills with players who didn't even make the practice squad. How are you supposed to properly evaluate a quarterback like that? This is why people like Tony Rizzo, who's been following this team forever, are starting to ask hard questions. Is there something Shedeur isn't doing behind the scenes? Is he not picking up the playbook fast enough? Is there a work ethic issue? Or is this just a case of the Browns committing to Dillon Gabriel early and trying to justify that decision by keeping Shedeur on the bench no matter what? And it's not like Cleveland's quarterback situation is so solid that they can afford to just sit on talent. Joe Flacco is 40 years old. Dillon Gabriel has shown flashes, but nothing that screams future franchise quarterback. Meanwhile, you've got Shedeur, a player with elite accuracy and a calm presence, wasting away as an inactive on game day. That's why this feels less like a developmental plan and more like a wasted opportunity. The Browns drafted Shedeur, but they don't seem interested in actually finding out what he can do. And when a player with this much potential isn't being used, it's only a matter of time before the rumor mill starts heating up, which is exactly what's happening right now. If you've been anywhere near NFL Twitter, talk radio, or even casual football group chats, you know the trade rumors around Shedeur Sanders are starting to reach a boiling point. And honestly, it feels like this storm has been brewing since training camp. When a highly drafted rookie doesn't get reps, doesn't get preseason snaps, and then sits as an emergency quarterback on Sundays, people start connecting the dots. And right now, those dots are spelling out one word: trade. Spelling out one word: trade. It started as a whisper. Hey, if Cleveland, not going to use him, maybe they should move him. But after the Browns' ugly Week 1 loss, the conversation has completely exploded. Fans are calling into sports talk shows asking why Shedeur is holding a clipboard instead of throwing passes. Analysts are openly speculating that the Browns might just be keeping him around for the jersey sales and media attention. And then there's Tony Rizzo, one of Cleveland's loudest voices, who's been hinting for weeks that there's something going on behind the scenes. He's repeatedly said, "If you're not going to give this kid a shot, let him go." And here's the thing, other teams are absolutely paying attention. Miami has been the most popular landing spot in the rumor mill. It makes sense. Tua Tagovailoa has been banged up, throwing interceptions, and the Dolphins' offense needs someone who can get the ball out quickly and accurately to their playmakers. Shedeur fits that system like a glove. Panthers fans have also been vocal, some even calling for Bryce Young to be replaced already. The Bears, Vikings, and even a few Bengals fans have thrown their hats in the ring on social media. But while the trade speculation is interesting, What's even crazier is the media narrative in Cleveland. Instead of focusing on the Browns' on-field problems, the blown protections, the missed field goals, the dropped passes, the local sports shows are obsessing over Shedeur's hat and sunglasses. They're literally dissecting his sideline appearance like it's a national scandal. Some fans even accused him of consoling the kicker just to get his face on TV. Think about how wild that is. A 22-year-old rookie shows compassion to a teammate who just had the worst day of his career, and somehow it turns into a conspiracy theory about clout chasing. This is where the conversation shifts from just football to something bigger. Shedeur isn't just a quarterback, he's a celebrity. His every move is watched, clipped, and debated. And that puts the Browns in a tough spot. Do they continue to stash him away, knowing the media storm will only grow louder? Or do they make a move, cash in while his value is high, and avoid the distraction altogether? Either way, the clock is ticking. And with every Browns loss, the calls to trade Shedeur are only going to get louder. Let's strip away all the noise for a moment, the hats, the sunglasses, the media hot takes, and just talk football. Because when you actually break down Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback, you start to see why so many teams are interested in him, and why others might still be hesitant to hand him the keys to their offense. First, the strengths. Shedeur's calling card is accuracy. This guy has one of the cleanest deliveries of any young quarterback in the league. His ball placement is elite. We're talking, hit the receiver in stride, let them pick up yards after the catch elite. That is exactly what a timing-based, rhythm offense like Mike McDaniel's in Miami needs. The Dolphins rely on quick reads, precision throws, and creating space for guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to run wild. If you were designing a quarterback in a lab for that system, you'd want someone with Shedeur's skill set. Then there's his poise. Go back and watch his tape from Colorado. The guy was getting sacked more than almost any quarterback in the country, and he just kept getting back up and making throws. That mental toughness matters in the NFL, especially for a young QB walking into a high-pressure situation. He's also got the leadership gene. His teammates love him, and you can see why he's calm, composed, and never looks rattled. But let's be fair. There are reasons some teams passed on him in the draft and why Cleveland might be hesitant to push him up the depth chart right now. One of the big concerns is pocket presence under NFL speed. While Shedeur handled pressure well in college, he also took a ton of sacks, some of which were on him for holding the ball too long, waiting for the perfect play to develop. In the NFL, you don't always get that luxury. You have to take the checkdown, throw it away, or live to play another down. Another question mark is experience against top-level defenses. Yes, he faced elite competition at Colorado, but the NFL is a different animal. Defensive coordinators disguise coverages, blitz packages come faster, windows close quicker. Until Shedeur gets real game reps, we won't know for sure how quickly he processes those reads. And then there's the simple fact that he's unproven at the NFL level. Potential is exciting, but it's still just potential. Any team trading for him has to be willing to bet on upside, knowing there might be growing pains. That's what makes this situation so fascinating. Shedeur is a high-upside prospect tailor-made for certain offenses, but he needs reps to prove he can take that next step. The question is, will Cleveland ever give him that chance? Or will another team step in, roll the dice, and see if he can become the franchise quarterback they've been searching for? At this point, everyone is asking the same question. What happens next? The Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland feels like it's reaching a breaking point, and the possibilities are as dramatic as they are fascinating. Let's look at the most likely scenarios and what each one could mean for Shedeur, the Browns, and the NFL landscape. Scenario 1. Cleveland stays the course. The Browns could simply keep doing what they're doing, letting Joe Flacco start, keeping Dylan Gabriel as the backup, and stashing Shedeur as the emergency QB. This is the most conservative approach and, frankly, the least exciting. It keeps Shedeur out of harm's way, gives him more time to learn the playbook, and allows the Browns to evaluate him slowly. But the longer this goes on, the louder the criticism will get. Fans are already restless. If Cleveland drops another couple of games, the calls to free Shedeur will hit deafening levels. Scenario 2. Shedeur gets a midseason shot. This might be the most Hollywood outcome, and the one fans want. If Flacco struggles or gets hurt and Gabriel doesn't impress, Cleveland might have no choice but to see what Shedeur can do. The upside is huge. If he balls out, you've got your quarterback of the future. The risk: if he looks raw or overwhelmed, the team could lose games and his confidence might take a hit. Still, this is the kind of scenario that can change a franchise overnight. Just ask the Texans how glad they finally gave C.J. Stroud the reins. Scenario 3. Trade deadline drama. This is where things get spicy. The NFL trade deadline is always good for a shocker or two, and Shedeur is the kind of player who could fetch real value. Miami, Minnesota, or even the Raiders could call if their quarterback situations get desperate. A move like this would be risky for Cleveland. They'd be giving up on a first-round talent before he's even had a chance to prove himself, but it would also eliminate the distraction and bring back draft capital. For Shedeur, this could be the best thing that ever happens to him, landing in a system built for his strengths. Scenario 4. Offseason reset. Finally, Cleveland could wait until the offseason to make a decision. This would give them a full year to evaluate their quarterback room, see how Gabriel develops, and decide if Shedeur has a future in orange and brown. But it also means a full year of media speculation, locker room whispers, and a fan base that's constantly asking why their most hyped rookie isn't playing. No matter which path Cleveland chooses, the stakes are massive. The Browns either have a potential franchise quarterback sitting on the bench, or they're sitting on an asset that could help reshape their roster. Either way, the next few months could define Shedeur's career and the Browns' future. So where does this all leave us? Shedeur Sanders is one of the most polarizing players in the NFL right now, and not because of poor play or controversy, but because we haven't seen enough of him to know what he really is. That might be the most frustrating part of this entire saga. We've watched quarterbacks with less hype, less pedigree, and fewer tools get thrown into the fire just to see if they can swim. Meanwhile, Shedeur is standing on the sideline, helmet in hand, waiting for a shot that may never come in Cleveland. This story is bigger than just a depth chart issue. It's about how teams develop young quarterbacks in a league that is obsessed with instant results. Some teams throw rookies into the starting lineup too early and risk ruining their confidence. Others hold them back for so long that by the time they get a chance, the narrative around them has already shifted to bust. The Browns are walking that tightrope right now, and every decision they make is under a microscope because of Shedeur's name, his social media following, and the expectations that come with being Deion Sanders' son. And we can't ignore what this means for Shedeur himself. This is a young man who has already proven he can handle pressure, adversity, and the spotlight, but sitting and watching week after week can test even the most patient competitor. At some point, he's going to want answers or opportunities elsewhere. If Cleveland isn't the place where he can grow, then maybe a trade is exactly what he needs to jumpstart his NFL career. As for the Browns, this is their moment to show they're serious about building a contender. If Shedeur is their quarterback of the future, they need to act like it, give him meaningful reps, let him work with the starters, and see what he can do under real game pressure. And if he's not their guy, then move him before his value drops and use those assets to strengthen the roster elsewhere. The next few weeks are going to be critical. The Browns' record, Flacco's play, Gabriel's development, all of it will factor into whether Shedeur stays, plays, or gets moved. One thing is for sure, this story isn't going away. The media, the fans, and every team that needs a quarterback are going to keep watching. So now we want to hear from you. Should the Browns unleash Shedeur Sanders and give him a shot to run the offense? Or should they trade him now while the market is hot and let him thrive somewhere like Miami or Minnesota? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you think Shedeur deserves a shot, smash that like button so Cleveland knows the fans are watching. Because one way or another, this is going to be one of the biggest storylines of the NFL season, and you don't want to miss what happens next.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.